Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. We got ourselves a Mailbag podcast. Justin, how are you?
Hey, Bobby Skinner. I'm very excited for Sunday Night Football. I want to give more of a monologue on how excited I am for Sunday Night Football on Friday's preview pod, since that makes more sense. But can't wait for it, man. Biggest game of the season. Get buckled up for it. I don't think people are excited enough, but I am. How are you?
Yeah, I get it, because partly it's like, we're 0-3-1 in our last 4 games, so it's hard to be super, especially after being, at one point, we were 6-1 and then 7-2. I understand it, but it's like you said, essentially the playoffs are on the line this week, because the Seahawks, they've got a tough schedule, they've got tough sledding the rest of the way, and then you beat the Commanders, you have 1 game up on them, but you essentially have 2 games up on them because of the tiebreaker.
And I'd rather be 0-3-1 with still a winning record in the month of December compared to, oh my God, how are we going to get through the rest of the year? Basically every single year since 2016 that we've said, oh my God, when we get to December, we're like, how are we even going to survive to the end of the season? Especially after we started this podcast and talking about this team. I'd much rather be in this situation now compared to the last couple of years.
Yeah, and our first mailbag question kind of talks about that, is like how the Giants started strong and have been sputtering lately. First, this episode was brought to you by one special person, Joe LaGrippo. In fact, Joe, he works for the Yes Network, and he made a great meme for us. The what do they even do? And he sent me that, and I was like, all right, I was like, just follow our Talking Giants page on Twitter, because I wanted to tweet it out and give him credit. And then he became a patron, and he's in the chat. So who is Joe, and why is he here?
Joe, he went to patreon.com/talkinggiants, and especially, I found that to be so funny. And if you're a Patreon member, and if you follow the Talking Giants Patreon Twitter, you know exactly what we're talking about. If you don't, tough, then you got to join it. You got to be part of the family. But Joe made that, and it was so funny. And then I see, Joe works for the Yes Network, and it was very, very funny. I'm like, coming from the top rope.
He was at our tailgate, too.
Awesome, right on. So he came from the top rope. Man, if I worked for...
This is what happens when you're the only Patreon member for an episode. You just get a full, breakdown of who you are.
I don't know if Joe told me that he worked for the S Network when, we saw him at the tailgate, but if I worked for the S Network, I would just go up to people and say, hey, I work for the S Network. I provide stats. I do things. I do graphics for Michael Kay and Jack Curry. I would just say that.
And the Talking Giants guys lately. I guess we're part of Yes, technically, with John Boy Media.
We're a branch, I guess.
Also, I'm starting to do some draft stuff. So Patreon, new benefits for the Patreon. I tweet out my draft reports whenever I finish them to the Patreon Twitter. I don't do that to regular Twitter because I don't feel like debating one single point people disagree with.
Are you starting with guys that are going to be at the Senior Bowl?
Yes.
So Cedric Van Pran and then the edge rusher from Notre Dame.
Well, Cedric Van Pran was not. That was the just picking someone from my way too early mock. Isaiah Foskey out of Notre Dame. I'm working on... I'm just kind of getting reports done for the Senior Bowl because we were not ready for the Senior Bowl last year with all the coaching and stuff. So I'm just getting, and also we're trying to do JM football stuff. Sorry we're wasting everyone's time who's just here for Giants. We're doing so much JM football stuff, and I'm just in my head, I was like, draft stuff is what works. So I'm just going to do draft videos.
Let's just do draft videos.
All right. Justin, who is Joe, anyways?
I said patreon.com/talkinggiants, and there's a lot of other benefits. You know what they are, including the Twitter, including the draft reports. Every single one. You put out a draft report of every single player that you cover, right?
I didn't last year, but I think this year I might just do that. Every single player and just tweet out. I'll tweet out the draft report I write up.
Might as well. Those are some benefits. Those are the tiers. There are some tiers. You know the drill. Thanks to our patrons.
All right. Take it away, Steve.
Mail time.
Mail time. The mail's here. Come on. Bye, guys.
Here's the mail. It never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail. Mail!
Thanks, Steve from Blue's Clues. Justin, let's get into the mail.
Oh, my God. My eyesight's extra bad today. I got to bring the computer up to my face.
Never mind.
Die John at die_John. What were you going to say to me?
I was going to ask you about maybe something that's a sponsor, but it's not technically. Blue light glasses. Anyways, go ahead.
Not this show. Would you rather the season gone the way it has, with the win versus the Titans, the Packers in London, or the Ravens, or lose those games and beaten the Lions, the Seahawks, the Commanders? So I guess we'll just start off with that. Would we rather basically flip the season? Would we have rather lost those games early on and then win the second half, or vice versa?
So here's why I'm going to say I would rather the season have gone the way it has. Now there is some elements to it of the offense was doing some things, and there's parts of it being figured out, and they can't open up fully to what they want to do because of personnel. So that's the part where you could say maybe the thing is caught up, and then Saquon is the other thing where it's like those are the two negative sides of it. Is Saquon, he's not as effective, and we'll talk about that in this question. But the reason I think we're losing these games and we're on the streak is, one, we've played better teams. The Eagles and Cowboys have top 5 talented rosters in the NFL. The Lions are a good team, and injuries have caught up to us. I don't think we've been totally figured out. I think injuries have killed us in huge spots. Adoree Jackson being out is huge. Xavier McKinney being out is big. Leonard Williams being out is huge. This run defense cannot survive without Leonard Williams. It's not going to be good anyways, but it just flat out can't survive without Leonard Williams. So I think injuries have done it. So I don't think the team has totally fallen off for the guys who are on the field, but I think injuries have caused it. So long story short, I'd rather the season go the way it has, because I don't think we had fool's gold on anything besides maybe a little Saquon.
Right. I would rather,
and even that kind of falls in the injury category. But the issue is it's an injury history there with the running back spot.
Yeah. Maybe injury is the wrong word, but just being worn down. Just because injuries are part of football, and that shouldn't always just be an excuse. And I think we have to stop that with Saquon Barkley. If he's on the field, we should expect him to rock and roll. Anyway, I'm with you, man. I would much rather have the season gone the way that it was, rather than the Giants scraping and clawing their way back. Because, if they lose those games to start the year, right, then they're under 500. They're scraping, they're clawing in their way back to 500, maybe get above 500 towards the latter part of the year. And, there's a valiant effort in that too. But just how awesome is it to start the year awesome? And that is just not something that we have had. It's been a long time, man. It's been a long time where the Giants are in October and November, and we have relevant football going on. So I would have definitely rather, especially while the team is healthy, rocking and rolling, have the team be 7-2 and the season gone the way that it's gone.
Yeah, and I think part of it is just some of the schedule stuff. The Ravens are a good team that we beat, definitely, won that game. The Packers, even though they're not good teams, anytime you're playing an Aaron Rodgers team coming off back-to-back MVPs, I still think that's a solid win.
Yeah. Titans, week 1.
Yeah. Even though the Titans haven't had the best last couple weeks, but they've been a solid team this year. So, yeah, and it's just, again, the Eagles and Cowboys are top 5 talents, roster talent from top to bottom in the NFL. They were up at halftime versus the Cowboys. Now, the tie versus Washington bothers me because, that game should have been won. But, there's no game that I go, that's the only game I go at and, damn, they had to win that. They should have won that, and they didn't. Because even the Lions at the time, maybe they weren't, but it's the Lions are kind of good now. They're beating good teams. Their only loss in the last, 5-6 weeks is barely losing to the Bills on Thanksgiving. They are becoming a good team. They're the team I'm worried about in this playoff picture if we do beat the Commanders.
Yeah, they're rolling. And the Seahawks game is different, I think, if you're not playing it in Seattle, and if Richie James maybe doesn't fumble twice. That game is also possibly a different game as well. However, I think that Seattle game was kind of the start of the fall. I don't want to dismiss, Bobby, the element of the Giants are kind of being figured out. Kinda. And what I mean by that is, Research Rick shared, the Athletic Football Show, where Robert Mays shared a stat about how 65% of the Giants' early down passes, 65% of them are play action attempts. And we have seen over the last couple weeks, and I think it started with that Seattle game, teams have started to figure out what the Giants are doing on those play action boots and on those play action rollouts. And you could say that Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll have added wrinkles to that every now and then, but overall, the effectiveness of those plays has tremendously gone down since that Seattle game, and they're continuing to run it, and they're not adjusting from it.
Here's the issue, though. The only thing I push back on that is because I do agree with you. There has been elements that have been figured out, but I don't think the only game where you can point at and say that is the reason why they didn't win was the Commanders game. Like, I don't think the scheme had anything to do with the losing to the Lions, you know, and then...
Cowboys, they ran it well. There were a couple big plays that they had in the Cowboy game, so, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, that's a good point. You know, so, like, that stuff will matter. Like when we, on our recap pod on Monday, where we talked about some things that were, like, better, it's like, I don't think it changes this game, but this has to change for the Commanders game. You know, where we talk about more drop-back passing and stuff.
There's a point of, you know, you can point at a game or you can point at a certain situation and just be like, hey, you know, even though this isn't an element or a sole reason why the Giants won or lost this game, there is still an element of, you just look at the accumulation of the last few weeks, like their effectiveness on play action on early downs. It literally went from a team that is one of the best in the league at it to now when they run play action on early downs. I think Robert Mays used that it's 18th on an EPA basis. That's the metric that he was using. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you in saying that. Okay, is it one of the reasons why the Giants are winning or losing the games being figured out? No, but the overall effectiveness of it has definitely gone down, and it has impacted how well the offense has moved the ball.
That's true. In the Commanders game, I think if they don't get so heavy play action, I think they win that game.
Yeah.
You know, and that does, you know, that would make this game, you know, you could essentially seal a playoff game if you won that game. The one thing where I do worry about it is again the Saquon being worn down. Like, you know, these, you know, weeks 1 through 7 versus weeks 8 through 14. You know, so first 7 games, the last 6. His yards after contact per attempt went from 3.4 to 1.9. And that is essentially the exact difference of his just yards per carry in total in those times, where it was 5 yards per carry down to 3.3. You know, there's the 0.2, and that's huge. That's huge. That's essentially the teams have taken away the big runs. And you brought up the broken tackle stats. Like, you can talk about the offensive line being issues and giving Saquon issues, absolutely. But when they're not giving you issues, Saquon was breaking plays and making big plays, and he's not doing that anymore. You know, like he was in the beginning of the year. Even when he wasn't necessarily breaking tackles in the beginning of the year, he was making cuts that led to big plays. He's not doing that anymore. So I think that's the one thing that worries you going into these last 4 games is like, what kind of, do we get any type of, it's like you said, is Saquon Barkley an advantage in these last 4 games? And that's the worry I have in this last 4 games of the season. Yeah,
you mentioned his explosivity not even being there these last couple weeks. So what I actually did today is I went game by game and I charted the Giants, you know, the total 10+ yard rushing attempts that they had on the season. And, you know, we'll just talk Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley had a run rate of 10+ yards on 10.1% of his carries the first 10 weeks of the season. The last 4 weeks, it's cut in half. It's 5.02%. So only 5% of his carries the last 4 weeks that he's gotten, you know, 10+ yard runs out of him. That's huge. That's huge. And obviously, you know, so you could look at that, Bobby, and you could say, well, the offensive line is not doing him any favors, and it's not, they're not helping him, right? It's the offensive line. It's the offensive line. You can have a valid point there, but the yards after contact metric, which that is largely an individual running back metric, severely gone down on that compared to how he started the season. And then he's also just not breaking tackles. Broken tackles is one of those metrics. It's just a simple stat that's like, can a running back break tackles? Can he help a play with his own individual effort, or can he not? And Saquon Barkley just has not been able to do that since 2018, 2019. So we're in a tough spot with him, man. We are in a very, very tough spot with Saquon. I'm rooting for him to turn it around because he has to turn around.
We need him.
He has to turn around if this Giants team is going to make the playoffs.
And talking long term, like I think with the way the season's played out, it would be hard just to let him walk. So maybe but I'm now like in the franchise tag or bust. Like I'm not giving him multi-years, and if we just kind of, I hate it's brutal, but it's like I'm just gonna do what the Steelers did with Le'Veon Bell. But it would hurt to just let him walk for nothing. But at this point, you can't give him a long-term contract. So we need him to be good this last 4 weeks of the season.
Yep.
Next question.
Next question is coming from Tobias Colmegna at Tobias_0709. Do you think Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari are developing into a potentially scary pass rush duo?
Man, I am starting to get excited for those two guys. Kayvon, we said it before the Cowboys game. It's like he's kind of went cold. And since the Cowboys game, these last 3 games, man, he's been on a stretch. You know, in these last 3 games, he's got a sack, 7 hits, 9 pressures. He should have another sack, by the way. That I don't know why he didn't get to split that one with Azeez Ojulari.
I don't understand. They should have at least gave him like a QB hit on that or something. Yeah.
Like that should have been a split sack. And he played really well versus Jordan Mailata and had good reps versus Lane Johnson. I'm going to clip up his pass rush wins after this podcast or sometime tomorrow. He's been really good, you know, and like Aiden Hutchinson, who's like the top in like total sacks, QB hits, and pressures for rookies this year, he's at 141 pass rush reps. Kayvon's only like 3 off. Like Kayvon's got 2 sacks, 10 hits, 24 pressures. Hutch has 8 sacks. He wins in sacks largely. 5 less hits, and then only 2 more pressures. You know, and again, he's played 141 more pass rush reps. That's a lot. That's essentially, you know, that's 4 to 5 games worth. So Kayvon these last few weeks, I do care about sacks long term, but just for a rookie developing, like you're seeing a lot of good stuff on him. And he created a sack for Azeez Ojulari this week, and he created a sack for Ryder Anderson this week.
Yeah, I feel like for rookie pass rushers, unless your name is Myles Garrett and you just immediately hit from day one, which there's very few Myles Garretts in the NFL,
Parsons.
or Micah Parsons, and there's only a few of those guys in the National Football League, right? I feel like for rookie pass rushers, you're looking at, you know, hey, can you consistently kind of get home with QB hits, pressures, and even like those departments, like if Kayvon, like I have Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari's 17 game rate stats right here, so we'll just do it for Kayvon. He's played in 11 games. I think one of them he got 58% of the snaps against the Cowboys, and that's like a game where they were really kind of babying him to kind of come back. But here's his numbers on a 17-game rate. 3 sacks, 15.5 QB hits, and 23 pressures. I use Pro Football Reference, not PFF, because Pro Football Reference, I like the way they keep track of pressures more. So if you're telling me that, you know, Kayvon can finish, if you were to tell me in August that Kayvon would finish with a, you know, 15 QB hit season and almost a 25 pressure season, which ideally, like if you want to be an A-plus pass rusher in the NFL, you're giving me 20 QB hits and you're giving me 30 pressures every single year. And if that's Kayvon Thibodeau's first year, where he's getting within 5 QB hits and 5 pressures of that, that's really awesome. And Azeez Ojulari on a 17-game rate, a little bit more fugazi since he only played 4 games, but 17 sacks, 17 QB hits, and 34 pressures.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to, the Ojulari, like,
a little bit more fugazi to do that.
Yeah, you got need more of a sample size, but I did look like just like his pressure percentage. It's the second highest for an edge player for the Giants since they started charting that. The only one, actually, weirdly enough, was Robert Ayers in 2014. He just looks better, you know, like it's the eye test too. It's not just looking at, like last year you can look at Azeez Ojulari's stats and be like, it's not necessarily matching the eye test. Like he's not winning a ton, you know, he's not being doubled a ton, but he does like have a play or two every game that will end up on the stat book. He looks like his hand usage looks a lot better. And he's not like the most powerful guy in the world, but it's like he could get in an offensive line's chest and drive them back and then work his quick hands off of it. So, yeah, I'm very excited about those two. And that's why what did we say, you know, on the draft recap pod? It's like we have taken what has been a Giants' weakness for a long time and potentially turned it into a strength. And I think that's what we might have here with Kayvon and Azeez.
There was a mailbag question that you didn't include, but I actually really like it. You know, we were saying about Azeez Ojulari that his ceiling is a very, very good edge rusher number 2. I do think just watching him for 4 games this year and then jumping to a different conclusion may be not a smart thing to do, but are you starting to think that Azeez Ojulari's ceiling can maybe be more than just a really good number 2 complementary piece?
No, because you look around the league and there's so many great 1-2 punches, and that's what my goal is for Azeez, is to be the number 2. Because I think if he's your number 1, maybe the number 2 is right there with him, and then it's not a bad pass rushing. But like, you look around the league and it's like, I still view Azeez as like a really good number 2. And I think that's what he's going to be with the New York Giants. Like, hopefully Kayvon is that 1. We draft him to be the 1, and Azeez is that 2 to him. I also think there's just a size and strength element to Azeez Ojulari, even though he did add a little weight and got a little stronger. That's like, you kind of need to be a 1. Unless you're just like amazing.
Azeez is 22. How old's Kayvon? Is he younger? Kayvon is 21. So. Oh no, actually it's Kayvon's birthday in 2 days, so he'll be 20. So they'll both be 22. December 15th is Kayvon Thibodeau's birthday. Everybody go wish him a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Kayvon.
Happy birthday, Kayvon. One other thing that I wanted to note, Kayvon Thibodeau on pace for, if he did play a 17-game season, 15.45 QB hits. Azeez Ojulari had 13 his rookie year. So how do you like that? I wanted to include that note.
I like that. All right. Next question.
Before we get to the next question, I want to talk to you about AG1 and Athletic Greens. I started taking AG1 because I want to improve my immune system. I want to make sure that my body is ready to fight off whatever may come my way. It's flu season. You want to make sure that your body is strong, ready to rock and roll. You don't want to get sick when the weather is getting cold. So what is AG1? It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anything, while still tasting good. It costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. And you get all those vitamins, those minerals, all the things that you need to start off your day. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/giants. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/giants to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. You'll be glad you did that.
You'll be glad you did. Next question.
Now we're going to get to the next question. This is coming from Sam. I cannot believe how bad my eyesight is today that I have to pick up this freaking computer and read these questions. At Giants and Foxes. That's a great handle. Andrew Thomas has let 3 sacks up in 3 games. What's the main reason behind this, do you think? Bobby, I want to include a little nugget that I'm going to take from you, is that 2 of the 3 sacks that Andrew Thomas has been credited of allowing have come on play action attempts.
Yes, and those are the 2 ones that happened because of physical ability. The 3rd sack allowed versus the Commanders is like, we talked about it at length about how it's like, I think it's one of those things where it's like, what's the phrase? I'm having a Rickyism right now.
Sure.
In theory, he allowed the sack. In practice, I don't really think.
That's right. That's right.
So one, teams how are just like, they are just rushing the passer on play action with the Giants. Like, their edges are just go after the quarterback, do not play the run, because it's going to lead to negative plays. So that's part of it. But still, even then, like, that Josh Sweat just beat him around with speed, and I was very surprised at that. But that sack from that game doesn't necessarily worry me. And I'm not worried about Andrew Thomas. My worry for Andrew Thomas is, like, I have him in the top of the top. So I'm going to hold him to that standard, so like this past game, was it some bad game? No. But for the Andrew Thomas standard, for me, it was a bad game, because he gave up, he had like 3 other bad pass pro reps in the game, not horrible, but 3. And what Thomas has done so well is not let guys use their hands against him or using his hands against him. He'll pull his hands, but that leaves him vulnerable to the bull rush. And it's something I talked about on O-Line Reports earlier in the year. It's like, I don't know why guys just don't bull rush Andrew Thomas. Like, he invites it. Why not just do it? And the Eagles did do that. And, like, Reddick had a good play where he got up in his chest and then pulled him and got him off balance. And then there was one other one where they, got him and drove him back, like, about a little further than he usually would. So that's where I'm like, okay, well, our team's going to just start bullying Andrew Thomas and for the rest of the way. But I also don't think, like, pass rushers don't want a bull rush. So I don't think that's I don't have any worry about Andrew Thomas, basically, is what I'm saying. My only worry is, like, it ruins my, like,
Your
just
shtick.
like he has the most perfect pass pro rating in the NFL. Now he has, like, the 5th best for left tackles.
Yeah, 7 of his 16 pressures that he's allowed this season have been within the last 3 weeks. But it's still so crazy that he's only allowed 2 QB hits. That's nuts. This entire year.
Yeah, like I'm going to look up the pass blocking efficiency stats and see where he ranks for left tackles now.
Look at it from true pass sets.
Well, he's better from true pass sets because he hasn't given up. He's only given up 1 sack.
Oh, that's right, only 1 sack. So no, I want to know what it is from true pass sets. That's how tackles should be evaluated, in my opinion.
No, because like the play action ones are almost harder sometimes. Hold on. Minimum pass blocking snaps. Let's see. Out of left tackles, so he's behind Trent Williams, Darisaw, and Tunsil. So 4th. He's 4th. Before
Who's
he
5th?
was 2nd, he was only behind Laramie Tunsil. 5th is Brian O'Neill from the Vikings. The Vikings numbers are a little fugazi though, because they they wash their guys around the corner. Let me see. I'll look at it from true pass sets.
How many times are we going to say Fugazi on this podcast?
Yeah, from true pass sets, he's 4th too. Be for left tackles. There's right tackles, and right tackle numbers are so much different than left tackle numbers. So
is Tristan Wirfs going to man up and move to left tackle because Donovan Smith gets a holding call that's significant every week?
Tristan Wirfs might even be injured right now, isn't he?
Oh, he is.
I just want him to for the Andrew Thomas Tristan Wirfs debate. Like,
Correct.
It's fine for him to stay at right tackle. I just want him to play left tackle for that debate.
Correct.
All right.
But you're
next
right.
question.
He is hurt. Okay. Man, eyesight. Jay Stitt.
But it's funny that like Thomas on this bad streak and still his numbers are only worse than Taron Armstead, Trent Williams, Darisaw, and then Laramie Tunsil. And he's so the only guy that he's clearly better in that group is Darisaw. And then like Armstead, Williams, and Tunsil, like they're like he's right there with those guys. Like he is the best of the best. If you want to decide who's your top 4 in different order, fine. But he's in that top 4.
And those guys have been the best of the best for a long time. And Andrew Thomas is joining them. Jay Stitt, he asks, rank the Giants' current needs by position.
All right, so we're going to spend some time on this. We're going to go through our top 5. And I think this is just a good way to talk about each position and the weaknesses that it is. What would be your number 1? And by need, I'm going to say the aggressiveness you attack it in the offseason. So not just weakest, because number 1 for my need is not the weakest position for me. So what is your number 1 need for the Giants team?
Wide receiver 1.
Me too. I agree. I don't think it's the weakest position, but I think it's the biggest need. You need a guy in the NFL today. Like, Hodgins is nice and stuff, but it's like Hodgins is not an answer. Slayton, that's all. Like, it's awesome, but it's like there's really no deep threat on this team, and there's no guy who can just go and win consistently, no matter who you're playing. Like, he's gonna win. Like if they play all like an AJ Brown, it's like, oh, they're gonna play off coverage. We're gonna run quick hitters. They're gonna play press up. We're just gonna throw the ball up to you, and have a guy to go to. So I think we just need that. Like you need that. You see the way it's given issues for, Aaron Rodgers losing Devontae Adams. Having that wide receiver 1 is so huge. It really helps. It just makes a quarterback's life so much easier. And guess what? And it takes routine plays and turns them into scoring plays. Like we know that with, Odell. Like it's not just about like winning versus a cornerback and having separation. It's like those guys they take routine plays and turn them into scoring plays. They turn them from a 30-yard passing stat for your quarterback to a 55-yard touchdown stat. And they finish drives, and that's what the NFL is about at the end of the day, getting 7 points, and they make such a huge difference in that. So I think linebacker is the biggest weakness, but to me, wide receiver is the biggest need.
Yeah, explosive plays, man. Just yards after the catch. a guy that can be able to run a route that you can trust, that you can, hey, Daniel Jones, this is your first progression, and you can feel confident that this guy is going to be open and not necessarily something that's solely derived from scheme. Jimmy's and Joe's having a guy that can win his matchup, and the Giants, we are now approaching another offseason where the Giants are the worst team in the National Football League in explosive pass play rate, and luckily it hasn't tanked their season like it has in the past, but that needs to change if the Giants are going to have any sort of sustainable success.
What's number 2 for you?
Mike linebacker.
Yeah, it's such a huge need, man. By the way, I watched Jalen Smith specifically. I go watch the film. I don't sit there and focus on every guy, every rep. I just kind of give it, But anyway, I watched Jalen Smith specifically because of the Carl Banks tweet, and that's propaganda. That is anti. And I guess there was a comment about Tay Crowder on their show about he's just, after the benching. That's propaganda. Jalen Smith was horrible. Honestly, it might have been Jalen Smith's worst game of the year. Like, he was getting bullied by the Eagles' offensive line. He was bad failing, and getting into his run fits. He was it was horrible. Like, it's one of the worst Mike linebacker games I've seen. And it's just like, and I think Tay Crowder should play, but it's like if we put Tay Crowder in there too, he's going to suck. I just think he's going to suck a little less.
Yeah, it's a putting lipstick on a pig conversation, I guess.
Yeah, like every time I'm gonna do it every single week that they start Jalen Smith. I'm gonna go watch the film. Like, Tay Crowder should be starting, and people are like, "Oh, are you crazy? Tay Crowder sucks." And I'm like, yes, I agree, but he should be starting. And I think a Mike linebacker would make us feel better about guys like Micah McFadden. Like, I think if we had a good Mike linebacker, Micah McFadden would be well liked right now, even though he does make some mistakes and guess a little bit.
But you kind of want your weak side backer. You don't want him to make mistakes, but you want your weak side backer to be able to fly around and make plays. And if they make mistakes, then you should have the supporting cast like an interior defensive line, like a Mike linebacker that can clean that stuff up. But Micah McFadden making mistakes looks worse because the Giants just don't have those guys to back him up.
Yeah. So, like, I can... Linebacker could be a first-round pick for the Giants this year. Like, it's such a huge need, and it's like, I don't understand how people devalue the linebacker so much, and especially people are like with Blake, and now Blake Martinez, it's been different. But like, even when he was like, oh, he's a run-stopping linebacker. It's like, that's the job of a linebacker. Like, it's like you need to be functional in coverage, but stopping the run is what you do as a linebacker. So yeah, linebacker is such a huge... It's their weakest position by far. Like, it is much weaker than wide receiver right now. Like, it's so bad. What's third for you?
I think this is where we're going to start to deviate. I have CB2/CB1 if they move away from Adoree Jackson.
You thought we'd deviate. I agree.
Oh, wow.
Whether Adoree is here for 2 years or 3 years, Adoree could be here for 3 more years, guaranteed, and playing well. And I would still say cornerback. We need the guys that play press man. We need press man corners, as Dave Gettleman would say. And I just think it's such a valuable position in the NFL. Yeah, like it's just so valuable in general. And having corners like guys like Sauce Gardner, Adoree Jackson, it just changes the way you can play offense, So yeah, I agree with you on corner.
Now you could tell me like Cordell Flott, and I actually tried today, and I may continue this if I have the energy for the rest of the week. I tried today as Bobby has a sneezing fit. Oh man, that's a big sneezing fit. Bobby has a sneezing fit off camera. I've tried to like watch plays where Cordell Flott's in. He's just not playing enough. And even when he's in, it's like just non-consequential plays. I can't even give you like an evaluation of his rookie year. So I don't even know.
And corner's a position you're always got to be drafting too.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's a lot of positions you should, I guess every position besides like quarterback, you should always be drafting.
I also think, well, not just drafting.
Maybe not safety too.
I just think I'm of the belief that Giants should be spending a huge amount of percentage of their cap on corner, because I think these corners that are just in free agency, like, I value experience at the cornerback spot so much more than a lot of the other positions in the National Football League, partially because I have PTSD from Giants draft mistakes at corners, but then also you've just seen how well free agent signings have worked. Adoree Jackson, James Bradbury, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, even go back to Janoris Jenkins, DRC.
Yes. Like DRC, yeah.
Corners, I agree with you. Where it's like that's the one position I'm willing to splurge like consistently in free agency is that cornerback position, because it's such a hard transition to the NFL coming out of the draft. And there's even like guys like the guys out of Washington last year, where it's like these guys may be awesome, but it's like it's so hard to tell because they just play in like these cover 3 hang positions, and it's like they're never like, they're never just tested, or they play against crappy wide receivers. So, like even Sauce Gardner, like I thought Sauce Gardner was the best player in this last draft. I was still worried. I was like, I don't know, like corner, like he could bust. Like, I don't know. Pardon me.
Jeff Okudah was seen in a similar light where it's like, oh, this can't miss prospect. And it's taken him how many years, mostly he had a year due to injury, but he was terrible his rookie year. He was so bad. And now he's kind of recovered somewhat well, I think. So,
position number 4, interior offensive line.
No, I have wide receiver 2.
I think that's kind of... I thought we were talking about just positions, not depth chart positions.
Okay. Well, I think wide receiver 1 is a very different position from wide receiver 2. If that's a cop-out answer, but I do kind of believe it.
Yeah, but even then, I still would say interior offensive line before that.
All right, well, then next on my list, not counting wide receiver 2, I do have interior offensive line.
I mean, we don't need to give you guys a ton on that, but it's like right now we don't have any for sure answers there. Like, we need to see Nick Gates play center. Azudu could be, what we don't know. Like, you can't bank on that. Bredesen is like, are you ever going to get health? Like, Bredesen is kind of just injury prone.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just the injuries had this year. Like, he had like 3 injuries last year, so he might just be injury prone. So you can't bank on that. So you really don't have like any for sure answer in the interior right now. Like, the only one you have some confidence in is Nick Gates, and that's like playing center. Like, I don't have a ton of confidence in playing. I think he can be the 5th starter on a team playing guard, but if he can get back to the same level of play at center, then it's like, all right, we got an answer there. But it's like we've only seen him play 1 game of center, so we need to see that.
Right. You said that corner should always be a position that you're drafting. I think interior offensive line should just always be a position that you're drafting. Because even if you're not drafting guys to be starters per se, you always want somebody to be a starter, but they're just so important for depth, as we've seen every single year of every single Giants season.
Yeah, basically besides 2019 or 2020, like 2020, we didn't have to use 2020. It was like we had the most healthy offensive line of all time. Like, Thomas,
even Will Hernandez got COVID, and then Shane Lemieux, a guy that you drafted, had to start. So
yeah, and that was because of COVID, and Hernandez was healthy the rest of the year. Gates started the whole year. Zeitler started the whole year, and then Fleming started the whole year. And then 5. So 5, I have 2 here. I kind of have quarterback here, but I also think Daniel Jones is a pretty solid quarterback. So I'm just gonna say defensive tackle.
I have nose tackle / interior defensive lineman number 3. Yes, but quarterback could be the answer. I mean, if you really wanted to get cute, you could say quarterback 1, because it's like you need the to shoot for the top quarterbacks in the league. But I'm just kind of like, Daniel Jones is a solid quarterback. We approach this exercise. Well, I mean, I guess it's for this offseason too. Well, I mean, it also depends on if there's a QB that we really like, and if there's a QB that Joe Shane really likes, then go get him. That's also it too. Like, Daniel Jones shouldn't stop you from getting a quarterback that you really, really like. If that's a guy that you want to put your job on the line for, then go for it. So we don't know that yet. Yeah, I don't. There's a good chance there won't be. Because anyways, I'm not going to say this class doesn't look good. I don't. We haven't looked at it yet. We haven't looked at it yet. I'm not just going to repeat people. All right, next question. Do you want to talk about something first? I want to talk about DraftKings, but that was not because you said it. I just want to talk about them in general. Yeah. DraftKings Sportsbook. By the way, someone said I made it because you know how Eli and Peyton, they're very bad at reading their questions. They're terrible. They're horrible. I love the Manning cast, but like when they are interviewing someone, they are horrible
at asking questions. Horrible. They just read it like that. Like I'll like say they're talking to Justin Pennick. Like, Justin, I heard that you really like Shania Twain. What made you like Shania Twain?
Should I answer?
Someone's like, sounds, it's just like Talking Giants reading any ad. And I was just like, that's hurtful.
Disagree.
DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. And we're reading ads. It's not an interview.
No.
This is the official sports betting partner of the NFL. It's my go-to when betting on the NFL this season. And you know what? Bet on the Giants to beat the Commanders. We're underdogs. Bet on them. Money line it. Bam. Win. Money. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Bet the Giants, people. Check this out. Check this out real quick. Right now, everyone can earn up to 100%. Earn up to a 100% boost with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. I feel the pressure because of that Twitter comment. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, place a same game parlay, and combine multiple bets like which team will win, player props, point totals, and more. The more legs you add, the bigger the boost, the bigger your shot to win. And if you want to be like me, I am always up. Every time I go to New Jersey, I leave New Jersey up on DraftKings Sportsbook. So make these suckers broke. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code JOHNBOY. Place a $5 bet on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code JOHNBOY. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
You'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did.
Make these suckers broke. VinScam at VinScam17. What do you see being the biggest issue with the O-line? How would you go about upgrading it? Is it just a matter of replacing Glowinski and Feliciano, or is it more than that?
I guess we kind of just talked about that. But I wanted to say Evan Neal was really bad this last game. And he came off 2 good pass pro games. You know, the Ravens game and then the Commanders game. The Eagles just, their pass rush is just attacking in so many different ways, man. Like, it's hard to plan for them. And they literally beat him in like every single way. Like whether it was beat him around the corner, beat him inside, bull him. Like they just beat him in every single way. Like watch the O-line report, but that was discouraging.
The Eagles are going to have a top 5 pick again.
Dude, it's so stupid. It's so stupid.
It's like
if teams get quarterback hungry, like they could have Will Anderson Jr. on their team.
It's like I do like an NBA 2K16, my GM. I have like a franchise that's going until like 2060. I've never bought into 2K after 2K16.
Was that the Kyrie Irving cover?
I can't even tell you what the cover was. I have no clue. No,
that was a good one.
It was Anthony Davis, Steph Curry, and James Harden. I think they all shared the cover together.
Oh,
there was like
the
3
Kyrie Irving cover was one of the best NBA 2Ks.
So what I do in that game
mode
is I just trade away good players that are on expiring contracts because they're like 6 man. They're like the 6th man on my bench, and they're frustrated that they're on the 6th man. They're frustrated that they're on the bench. So then I just trade them away to lottery teams, and then I like win the lottery, and then I'll like win the NBA championship and then have the first pick. That's what the Eagles have done.
Oh, NBA franchise mode on 2K, it kind of sucks because you can do that. Like I've gotten to it where it's like I have like 15 first round picks, and if they're not a lottery pick, trade them away. If they're not a pick where I want that player, trade them away. And you could do and I started downloading historic draft classes, so it's like I'm drafting Ray Allen. I know this is going to be a hit. So what were we talking about?
We were talking about Evan Neal having a bad game against the Eagles. However, he had a good game against the Commanders last time.
Yeah.
His best game of the season.
We need him to play good against the Commanders because, honestly, he was some of the reasons why the passing game did not have big plays this last week. Was because of Evan Neal specifically. So we need Evan Neal to step up and grow. It sucks he had that injury. So these last 4 games are so critical for Evan Neal and his growth going into his second year. Hopefully the last 5 or 6 games. But anyways.
Good point. Chase Young coming back. Going to talk about that, I think. I love talking about that. I know maybe you're not as into it as you were in 2020, but I'm still very fired up about Chase Young, Andrew Thomas, and just him saucing him and everything like that. Getting a salad tossed.
Remember we won the Andrew Thomas Bowl.
We did. Tone Garcia, Bigger L, Nate Solder, or Kenny Golladay?
I was actually just glad that Tone asked this question because it's like recency bias. Recency bias is a hell of a drug. Even as bad as Kenny Galladay's season has went, and I don't think any of us could forecast it going this bad from training camp. Like, you remember how much heat he was getting in training camp? Did anyone forecast it to be this bad, Justin, where he's just totally benched and it's not an issue?
No,
there's
I had a
problem with
moment.
it?
I had a moment sitting in the stands on Sunday, because, when it's a 28-7 game or 24-7 game or, and it's a blowout, your mind races to a lot of different places. And my mind was racing to, are we seriously getting blown out right now by the Eagles? And we're just refusing, making an effort, not playing Kenny Golladay.
And it's rightfully so. But even with that being said, to me, it's Nate Solder by a mile. We're still paying Nate Solder. Nate Solder lasted the entire Dave Gettleman era. And here's what it comes down to. One, Nate Solder was paid at the highest. He was paid the highest player at his position in the NFL. One. Two, Nate Solder wasn't even good before he was with the Giants. At least Kenny Golladay was good before the Giants. Nate Solder sucked. And Kenny Golladay had one halfway solid year. Nate Solder was always bad for the Giants. And here's what it all comes down to me, Justin. Nate Solder being on the field is way more negative than Kenny Golladay off the field or on the field. Nate Solder lost them games in 2019. Go back to 2019 and there's games where it's if we had Andrew Thomas now versus Nate Solder then, we win the game.
Pat Shurmur may have lasted past 2019 if Nate Solder wasn't the worst left tackle in football.
Yeah, seriously. Pat Shurmur would have gotten a year 3 because anyways.
And maybe there's not such this Daniel Jones discourse the Giants should draft Tua. Remember that was a hot button issue? Maybe there's not such a Daniel Jones discourse after year 1 and after his rookie year if Nate Solder isn't the worst left tackle of football. For how much shit Andrew Thomas got his rookie year, I'm thinking to myself, where was this energy when we had Nate Solder? Where was this energy?
And he was
I still
not
get
even he when he played right tackle last year, he was not even he did not belong on a football field or on a roster. He was so bad. It was pathetic.
I'm still going to say that Kenny Golladay is a worse free agent signing just because he
you're wrong.
Didn't play. But I agree with you. I agree with you in saying that Nate Solder is way more consequentially bad.
Well, that's a worse free agent signing then.
Kenny
Galladay's year 1 was better than anything Nate Solder ever did. Kenny Golladay wasn't a horrible receiver last year.
Yeah, I guess if you really put a gun to my head, I'm saying that Nate Solder is a worse football player than Kenny Golladay in a Giants uniform.
And he had a bigger contract. To me, it's and again, we're going to cut Kenny Golladay and save cap space this offseason. Nate Solder lasted basically his whole contract. He held the Giants hostage essentially.
He did.
Oh my gosh, Nate Solder pisses me off so bad.
Yeah, I got heated right there.
Remember when people were he had a year off, he was going to... Nate Solder, and I feel bad because Nate Solder has gone through some family issues and he's actually a genuinely good guy. But I remember people he's going to have a comeback year this year. And not just Copizzle, but actual people who've been he's going to bounce back. I was he admitted that he did not work out and that he is not in playing shape.
Yeah, I'm not in playing shape, guys.
And he essentially admitted in that article that the only reason he's coming back is because he needs the... He can't just pass up millions of dollars.
Agreed.
Crazy.
Yeah. My options are to retire or come back and get $5 million. Yes. I will take the latter.
Yeah. That's he essentially admitted in that article. I was this is crazy.
Thanks, Dave Gettleman. I'm not saying thanks, Dave Gettleman, sarcastically. I'm saying it as Nate Solder. Thank you, Dave Gettleman, for giving me that money.
Yeah. Kenny Golladay saying the same thing, too.
Yeah.
All right, anything else before we close this mailbag pod out?
No, get excited for Sunday. We'll break it down in the preview pod. I guess just like we did 2 weeks ago, I'll rewatch that game that we had against the Commanders.
We got film, baby.
We got film to see what they did. The Commanders didn't play last week, so they're on a bye. I actually love that, man. You talk about it all the time. It's not like the Commanders have been grinding in the building for 2 weeks. They were on vacation. Luckily for them, they didn't have any ATV accidents, and they also activated Carson Wentz. Is there a possibility he starts? No,
but it's a distraction.
We don't have that.
We almost did because Tyrod Taylor. By the way, Tyrod Taylor led the Giants in rushing on Sunday.
Yeah, he had a big. Did he have like a 30-yard run too?
Yeah.
Huge.
He averages like 14 yards per carry.
Nuts.
I think the most liked tweet I got in. I'm gonna find it because it was actually pretty funny. But yeah, so that's an episode.
I wasn't paying attention to Tyrod Taylor.
No, of course not.
Can't tell you a single play.
He had a really nice throw to Richie James.
And is that where Richie James got concussed and then he held his head?
Yeah, my biggest tweet of this year is Tyrod Taylor came into the game, threw a pick, did a 6-spin move, got concussed, and called it a day. And that one was pretty big. All right, we'll see you guys on Friday for a preview pod. Get excited. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.